So it's my absolute pleasure today to welcome a very dear friend and also client, Andrew Coppin, the founder and managing director of Farmbot Monitoring Solutions. Coppo has done an amazing job with his team of taking Farmbot from Australia to the world. They are absolutely one of Australia's most innovative startups, and where they get involved is working with producers to connect their farm resources such as rainfall, water and diesel through satellite and cellular connectivity. I'm Michael Masterson, one of the managing directors at Average, and it really is a great pleasure to catch up with Coppo. We've become mates over the years. Mate, tell us a bit more about your role in terms of what you do day-to-day at Farmbot and also about Farmbot.
Yeah, hi Michael, and thanks for having me today. That's a big intro to live up to, but I appreciate it. So Farmbot's now coming up to a little bit over 6 years old. The brainchild of my co-founder Craig Hendricks and I. We met at a accelerator program called Muru-D, run by Telstra, a few years back when he had some ideas about remote monitoring on farms, and I grew up on farms, and was looking for some good ideas to invest my time and money in. And here we are, fast forwarding 6 years. We're now a team of over 50 people, monitoring about 10,000 locations around Australia, and soon to be launching in North America, which is really exciting. It's obviously been, as all startup journeys are, had its ups and downs. I mean, the first 3 years, we were really just trying to find what we were doing, a technology, and find the product market fit for what we wanted to do. But I mean, fundamentally, we knew that there were people driving around every day checking water that didn't need checking, and that was a very time-consuming and expensive exercise for all farmers, especially those that were running livestock. And the irony was, 1 second after they checked what they were checking, they didn't know what was happening. So we thought about, what if we could provide real-time reporting on water resources for farms using satellite and NB-IoT technology, and put all of that information in their pocket on their cell phone or on their laptop back at the homestead, and allow them to be set free from the tyranny of having to drive around and check water, which is just one of those jobs that is unavoidable. And that was the start of a very interesting journey and product development now for Farmbot, or RanchBot as we're known in the USA. And we've now got 78% of our customers have other things that talk to Farmbot: rain gauges, soil moisture probes, water pressure, water flow, and a whole suite of other products of things that talk to Farmbot.
No, it's great. And look, fantastic background, Andrew, especially for those few people that might not have heard about Farmbot. Look, I'm sure there'll be half of America listening to you and I chat. So hopefully a good plug for RanchBot in the US. Look, heading into the US, as we've talked about a lot, people won't pay for, what they can steal. And certainly going into such a massive market like America, imitation's the highest form of flattery. And copycats can obviously pull down that market share and margin. So talk to us about, how you've protected those intangible assets, because ultimately that's what's driving that competitive edge, secret sauce, whatever you want to call it. But that's what's going to allow you to generate that margin and ultimately, generate for yourself and the other shareholders that return on investment.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, protecting your IP and your position in the market is critical thought for our senior leadership team, and certainly with Average's help, we've done some far deeper thinking about that than we otherwise would have, and realised that it's not just about trademarks and IP protection, but it's also about trade secrets, about how we distribute information across the firm, and about what we decide to seek protection over. Is it something that's defensible? Is it enforceable? Will it make a difference to our overall financial position and outcome? So, now we run a library of our intangible assets. We monitor their progress. We think about new things that need to be added to that. We've segregated different parts of the business and IP information, particularly code and software and other things, into different buckets so that no one party can have access to the entirety of our IP in that area. Where necessary, we've taken out sort of more formal, patents and things over things that we are doing. And in other areas, we've put things down to trade secrets and things that, we know that others don't know. And that, you'd only come across by doing the 6 years of investigation, hard labor and testing that we've done in the field. And I think, it's often you underestimate the knowledge that you've garnered through going through a process of building a business from the ground up. And I really think that Everidge has helped us better understand the true value of intangible assets and moreover, the importance of being mindful of them and protecting them.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we've done a few projects with you over the last few years, and how did you first come to hear about us? And I suppose too, happy to send you the $20 for your next answer. But how did you find working with us?
Yes, I think I first saw you. I was asked to do a speaking spot at an Agritech event down in South Australia, and I think you might have been on the same stage at a different point in the day. I remember sitting there listening to you, and just provoked me to think about the intangible assets of our firm and what the true value of them were. And obviously, the rest is history, as they say. One thing led to another. Obviously, yes, I mean, having a good look across the entirety of our firm to work out where these opportunities were for us to add value, was an interesting journey and enlightening for our senior leadership team, because it really made them think differently about what sort of business they were involved in and the technology and information that they were handling and gathering and creating. But I think it's been a really good experience for us, and it's an ongoing journey now to continue to maintain that our position of strength in that area.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned the team obviously now aware of intangibles. Is this something that you think was aware before you kind of met us, or was it more just gut feel? How would you sort of explain that?
I think, like so many people that have come from a sort of more traditional background, I mean, I sort of spent 25 years in financial markets and investment banking before. And I mean, intangibles is always something that sort of, appears on the balance sheet, but often just sort of passed over and not a lot of deep thought into it. And so I guess, like in hindsight, thinking about the process and the journey that we went through with you, I think, companies go out and seek accounting advice. Companies go out and seek legal advice. I mean, on the important issues, people go and get advice. And then, I think not frequently enough, people think about, well, how about we go and get some asset advice? What is the true value that we've got within this organization? Where is it? How is it managed? How do we protect it? And, how do we secure it for the future and continue to build, a moat around what it is that we do? So, I think it would be fair to say it was like, so for so many people, a passing thought that is now a significantly deeper thought that's of great benefit to this firm and the shareholders of the firm.
Done. I'll definitely send you that $20, Coppo. Thank you for the kind words, mate. And I've got to say, we've absolutely enjoyed, working with you and your team, and especially, looking at the journey you've gone through, because when we first met, you weren't that big a firm, and now you're taking on the world, and hopefully you're taking on the world with a lot more confidence. Unfortunately, like a lot of companies that export, they end up getting blown up on the battlefield, which kind of leads me into, you don't just wear one hat, do you? You've got a few different hats on, including being the chair of Agritech. And what do you think some of those other agri-tech companies should be thinking about in terms of that potential, not just to grow obviously domestically, which is a huge market in Australia and also New Zealand, but also going internationally?
So I'm the president of the Australian Agritech Association, or Aus Agritech. That's an association set up to protect and build the interests of the agri-tech community here in Australia, the commercial agri-tech community. We're really following in the footsteps of your good friends in New Zealand, Agritech New Zealand, who got a defined strategy around agri-tech and have built some great IP and built some amazing companies out of the New Zealand agri-tech sector. And so we really wanted to seek to emulate that here in Australia, where similarly we've got many brilliant companies that are world leading in their fields for agricultural technology, which is nowadays increasingly around climate change, resilience. How are we going to produce more with less in an ever-changing environment? So I think a lot of I know probably at least 30 Australian companies that are all looking to expand into international markets. I think they all need to be mindful of protecting their IP and being aware of their true value and what do they need to protect and defend before they go and do that. We've spent the last 2 years just getting ready to go to America, and now we've spent the last 6 months ground truthing everything that we learned and thought in the US ahead of our official launch sort of next February. So the decision to go into these big global markets is not one that should be taken lightly or quickly, and you really need to do the hard work before you start. So I think yes, some Aussie agri-techs are sort of probably more advanced and further down that path than us, but for any aspiring agri-techs, I'd say make sure you're mindful of your IP and your intangible assets of your firm, where they are, who's got access to them, how you've protected them, and how you'll secure and defend them in the event that other people try and come and steal them, which is quite timely discussion here in Australia at the moment, or B, just copy them, and what are you going to do about it, and what can you do about it, and think about those game plans sort of before you even get started.
Yeah, no, look, I completely agree. And obviously that all leads into value. How do you charge for those products in foreign markets? And, as we've talked about, raising capital in those foreign markets as well, the valuation changes. And just speaking of valuation, because, obviously you've got a, incredibly impressive, background, especially around financial markets. How have you found the difference between Australia and New Zealand, when it comes to capital raising and valuations and, that aspect of the business?
Yeah, I mean, obviously part of us setting up the Australian Agritech Association was to shine a light on the sector, as New Zealand did before us, because it really, despite the fact everyone in the world sort of knows that Australia and New Zealand are leaders in agriculture, there's not a general awareness that Australia and New Zealand are literally global leaders in the world of agri-tech. And unfortunately, as a result of that, there's probably not sufficient government support and corporate support of the sector, because there's not this sort of awareness that, hey, we could be really good at this. And last time I checked, the imperative to sort of feed the world, another couple of billion people on the planet by 2050, which is really not far away, is pretty important. If we don't do that well, we're going to have significant social unrest, and all the other industries that we're very quick to invest in will be relatively insignificant if we don't have food and we don't have manage our limited resources well. So for me, it's all about building a sector and being a global leader in our field. For me, as the managing director of Farmbot, and for me as a president of Aus Agritech, I'm just driven to do and accelerate something that Australia is really, really good at, and to take that technology to the rest of the world. Of course, the benefit to our domestic farmers, both in New Zealand and Australia, is also very, very significant. And we do a lot of work with Agritech New Zealand to bridge the gap between Australia and New Zealand, and make sure that we're collaborating here, because for the rest of the world, they really see us as a specific region, and there is a general awareness, well known, that we are really, really good at this. But you have to have self-belief, and you have to have top-down awareness that that we are good at it, and then policy and funding follows that. That awareness and that self-belief. So, we've still got a way to go with that here in Australia. I do think that New Zealand is ahead of us in that game, but we're catching up.
Yeah, and if you had the ability to change anything, either with your Aus Agritech hat on or your Farmbot hat on, what would be the one single thing you think that would have the most impact?
Well, it might sound a little esoteric, but I actually really, really do believe that, this issue about self-belief and awareness is a really defining thing. I mean, if New Zealanders, everyone in New Zealand knows that New Zealand is very good at rugby. No one denies that. Your teams are and have been for a very long period of time the best in the world. It's a bit like, if Australia is going to send swimmers to the Commonwealth Games, we would expect to win medals in the Commonwealth Games. If we don't stand on a pedestal and say we are the best at agritech in the world, and we can be, and we will invest in it, and that will bring capital, and it will bring talent, it will bring people and skills and investment. That's what I hear most agritechs telling me is, they can't get sufficient capital, and as a result, they can't get sufficient people and resources to build and grow their opportunities. It's not that the opportunities aren't there. So to me, it's that top-down leadership and awareness that needs to come from ministers and prime ministers and people of authority to say, hey, we are and can be good at this, and then everyone falls in line and with that level of belief, and policy, money, people, resources follow that outcome. So I really think that is the thing that needs to happen if Australia and New Zealand as a region is to really stake its claim in the arguably what is the biggest single challenge of our times. Now,
Andrew, as you know, we'll both get in trouble if we run too much over time. So the last thing I just want to ask you is, what would be the advice, that you'd give other companies that are looking to either scale the business or raise capital? And, I suppose even if you could go back to, when you first founded Farmbot, what would be that advice you'd give to yourself maybe back then?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Other than don't do it.
It's a good question, Michael. No, I would never do that. I'm far too stubborn to think that. No, look, I think for me the key thing is focus. The things you don't do are critical, and you can get distracted by lots of bright shiny objects when you're on your startup journey, and you must stay very, very true to what you are going to do, and realize that, if you own a niche and you're very, very focused around that. I mean, with Farmbot, it was, we thought we'd release something that was simple, and then we made it more simple and more simple and more simple, and making complex things look really, really simple for the end user is ultimately what drives your adoption and your engagement with the audience. So to me, it's just focus on what you're doing and what you can really own and be good at. Don't do things that are a distraction. and spend as much time as you possibly can employing the right people that can help you be great and that are passionate about what you're doing. Because if you've got other people that believe in your vision and your dream, and they're similarly focused, then you can achieve anything, and it'll all happen faster and better than you could possibly imagine.
No, very sage advice, mate. And hey, look, Andrew, I just wanted to say thank you so much for giving up your time. I know that you are absolutely flat out taking Farmbot, RanchBot to the world, and also through the role that you do at Agritech, shining the light on the other great companies. So, mate, been my absolute pleasure, and I look forward to catching up with you in person. And definitely my shout for the beer.
Thanks again, my pleasure. Have a good day.